So welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And we're back in the car. We're on a little day trip in the freezing cold winter to go to Dayton, Ohio. We're just gonna go see some friends and play some board games.
Gonna be epic.
But yeah, I got a 2-hour journey, so I thought we'd kind of turn the camera on and have a quick chat about some things that we've been talking about. And one of those things, it being very early in the year, is kind of games that we're looking forward to in 2024. So I've got a big old list, and it is big.
It is big.
And we're just going to kind of talk through...
It's heavy too, right? Is it like on your phone when some of those games, it added weight?
And there's some stuff in here that you might not have seen on our channel before that we're excited about, and I think we're going to attempt to go and do and try this year. So I'm looking forward to 2024.
Yeah, going to be a great year.
So the first thing, and we're going to start big right out of the gate. And I guess the other part of this is that you had written a list on the blog of top games you're looking forward to. So if you've read that, some of these there'll be crossover with that, and if you haven't read that, you should go and check that out.
Well, I think ironically the reason I wanted to do this was because several people asked, hey, is there going to be a video version of this?
And here we are.
Here we are.
So, number one...
and these are not ranked in any way, shape, or form.
This is just a list.
I went down and I picked 10 specifically, then you and I came up probably with another
there's a whole bunch after that. And some of those were just kind of like done by publisher as well. So the first one we got on the list is GTS, The Greatest Day, Utah Beach from Multi-Man Publishing.
And it's huge.
They've been demoing this and playtesting it at WBC for the last few years, so we've seen it out there and had a chat with them briefly.
We originally checked it out with Matt Holliday and Joe Chacon in 2019.
Yeah.
Which is insane to me.
And they were playing it, they had the big Jif peanut butter thing that was
with
empty
10
with
dice
10 dice in it, shaking it.
Yeah.
It was so loud, it was funny. But the game was massive. It was like 5 or 6 maps.
But while it's massive, there are smaller scenarios.
Yeah. And GTS is pretty famous for that, where there's lots of smaller manageable parts of it too. It's a very detailed company scale system, and it looks very cool.
Yeah, I think the system is called Battle for Normandy, I think.
Well, because they've got the... is it The Greatest Day Gold Sword and Juno?
That one was released, 5 years ago.
And then they've got Utah, and eventually they got Omaha, and my understanding is that you'll be able to link them in some meaningful way.
That would be amazing. More table space than we could ever do.
But we've not played GTS, but we've talked to people about it and kind of had a little micro demo of it. Apparently, the CSS, the company scale system from Compass, is not dissimilar. So I didn't know that, and then
did I know that? Because I thought Adam Starkweather was associated with the first one, and now he's gone over and done the CSS system with Compass. Maybe I knew it, maybe I didn't.
I didn't, but when I heard that late last year, I was like,
and we love CSS.
But like when I heard that, I loved CSS, and the things that I loved about it are all present in GTS. So I'm like, oh, sweet.
Yeah.
So I'm very looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a very cool game.
And that's from Multi-Man, and it's huge. I mean, it's pre-order, it's up, it's like $245.
Yes.
I think retail, it's going to be around $400, but it's because like 15 counter sheets, 5 or 6 maps, tons of dice. I mean, it's not a small system, but that is one I definitely am interested in. The GTS is Grand Tactical Series.
Yes.
So it follows in line with some of our other standard combat series or operational combat series. So it's those lines from MMP. But yeah, very excited about that. There is a video on our YouTube channel, and it was when we were very, very new at this. It was funny. I watched it the other day, and
it's probably embarrassing.
Well, I don't know about embarrassing, but you can tell the relative novice nature of our questions because I don't think we fully understood, and that's okay. It to me, it's great to look at those because it shows our growth and journey through the wargaming world. So
So next up we got Vijay Nagara from GMT Games.
Choice.
So
choice.
we did like a little kind of an intro/learning video and kind of a review, because we got to play this with one of the designers.
Saverio Spagnoli.
Yes, we up at Noble Knight Games. He kind of came over because
that was the best part of the trip for me.
Oh my gosh, that game was amazing. It was so good.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the Irregular Conflict series.
Yep, it's actually the first volume in that series.
Because it's not quite a coin game, but if you've played a coin game,
it's coin-like.
You will know how to play it. But it's got some great nuance and difference. Has a great story going throughout it. It was just so good. I really enjoyed playing it.
Well, and it had some really unique mechanics as well, like that Mongol invasion thing. Basically, at the end of every round, you end up drawing one of those Mongol cards, and they kind of swoop down through Tibet and come into India and wreak havoc. And that's pretty cool. It's just unique and different. And then the other thing I really liked about those is those event cards did not typically make the player who took the event ineligible.
Yeah, you're almost always eligible with taking events, which is very unique. Most other coin games or coin adjacent games do not do that.
So every turn, I feel like you have generally an action to take.
Yeah,
and it's a 3-player game, so very unique.
Yeah, you were just always doing stuff. You were never just sat there like, I'm waiting for my turn.
Yeah.
That was a very, very cool. Very much looking forward to that. I think a lot of people are going to like that one.
I agree.
Next up, another GMT title we've got.
And by the way, on that one, it just charged.
Oh, that means that's coming soon. Then.
It is out. It's going to be out. It charged, I think, on January the 19th.
Nice.
So it will be out here by the end of January.
Very exciting.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, then we got France 40, second edition.
From GMT, yep.
Yeah, so that's part of Mark Simonich's 40X series.
Was it the first 40X series game?
No.
Okay.
I had thought that it was.
But it was one of the first.
Yes.
Okay.
It was Ukraine 43 was the first one
there you
that
go.
I found that out. Yeah, it was. So, but France 40 is one that, since we've been in the hobby, you couldn't get it.
Yeah.
It was just not available. And honestly, there's not a ton of France 1940 games, and I think it's because
it's one-sided in some ways. Yeah, right?
I think, or at least people think that it is, and don't make a game about it. And so I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Is it going to be one-sided? Is it going to be something that's actually winnable, and how winnable, and what that looks like for the allies? So
the reason I'm the most interested in it is they have done a total redo of all the graphics and the art and the board. It also is 2 games in one, so it's kind of the initial thrust of the Germans into France. I think that one's called Dynamo, maybe. And then there's Sickle Cut, where Guderian goes north towards Dunkirk. So it's like 2 games in one. So the board is double-sided. You flip one over, you play one, and you flip the other over and play the other. And you and I both love that 40X series from Simonich.
And I think it's one of those games where the action that you're doing with those long, thin blitzkriegs, that's going to show off that Zarkbahn system.
Right. So
I look forward to that, and I have high hopes for that. It's a Simonich game. It's probably going to be decent, right? It's getting a second edition for a reason.
Yep. And my guess would be in the next couple of months that one will be charging and shipping.
Yeah, that one looks like it's pretty high up on their list. Next up, we have the latest of the coin games, which is Red Dust Rebellion.
Sci-fi coin.
Volume 13 in that series.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think that was one of the most kind of hyped games, P500 wise, where when it was released, immediately had like 1,500 orders.
And I think it has, I looked the other day, it has like 3,700 orders.
Yeah.
That's pretty big time for GMT.
Yes. But I think the theme, or the lack of theme, is what helps that, because I might be interested in Napoleonics, you might not, but we're both interested in sci-fi.
No,
I think sci-fi brings a lot of our hobby together.
And Jay Carmichael, the designer, he runs that 3-minute board game, YouTube channel where he literally describes a game
Okay.
in 3 minutes. I think he's from New Zealand, but I think he's a very thoughtful designer. I've read some of his designer diaries, did an interview with him. Very much looking forward to it, and it's an outsider who's coming into the coin series, so to me that always leads to good things because there's, new ideas, fresh look, take on things.
Well, and I think sci-fi gives you a bit of freedom as well, and like you don't have those same kind of historical constraints where you have to fit into what kind of happened. If you want something to happen, you can put it in there.
Yep.
So I'm curious to see what fresh things we get out of that ideas-wise.
And GMT in their monthly update for January revealed the final cover for that game, and it's astonishingly
that just
good.
came. I haven't seen it.
It's very good.
Yeah, it looks great.
Beautiful.
Next up, we have The Other Side of the Hill from NAC Wargames, which is a European company, and that's the one about
German High Command,
German leadership during World War II. So it's a very different type of game.
Extremely different than anything that we've ever played.
Yeah. So again, it's one of those almost like a curiosity of like,
yep,
this is something very different because you're vying for like control at the top, so that you can enact, your war goals and things like that.
Yep. And somebody's got to take the fall for losses, because obviously you're going to have some early victories in that one, but then once the game kind of gets going, you get into 1942 and 43, Barbarossa starts to fail and you get pushed back, and somebody's going to take those hits in the German High Command, and that's part of the game, is trying to
push blame onto others.
To maneuver and deflect. It just looks fantastically interesting. I would say it's more of a Euro game than it is a traditional war game.
Yeah, yes.
But I don't care. To me, the topic is interesting.
Yeah, in the same way that Churchill is more of a Euro than a war game, right?
Somewhat abstracted,
yeah.
But it just looks good. And Carlos Marquez is the designer. I did an interview with him on it. He's just really thoughtful, and I think has given this game a lot of respect, the concepts, and the trying to do it well so that people don't get upset. And I understand why some people won't want to play it and will be upset about it. But to me, it looks so fascinating, and I want to play it to try it out.
Yeah, I like the idea of it's the high command trying to get your goals done.
Yeah.
Trying to make it everyone else's fault when the problems happen, and then it's the rats fleeing the ship, or trying to be the last person standing.
Yep.
The setting is less meaningful to me, but doing those kinds of things in a game
is unique and interesting.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting game.
We do gravitate towards those negotiation heavy. One of our favorite games of all time is Here I Stand, which involves negotiation all the time.
Even something like John Company, it's that
yes.
same thing of trying to deflect and be like,
yep.
well, it wasn't really my fault. It was someone else's fault because they didn't do this.
Well, I can't help that I can't roll well.
Well, you should have given me more money.
Absolutely.
You didn't give me enough money because you were promising of it. Yeah.
Fun.
That kind of, that's what I like in games, is that table talk, really.
And that one just had a successful Kickstarter at the end of the year. My guess is they're working through production. I hope it's going to be out this year. I threw it on my list just because I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, if it is, it'll be later in the year, most likely. Next up, we got a solitaire game called Manila, The Savage Streets, 1945.
Oh, yeah.
So this is from Revolution Games.
Revolution Games and Take Aim Designs. Take Aim is Mike Ranella in the equation, he's the designer.
And he did the Stalingrad one. Was it Roads to Stalingrad?
Stalingrad Advance to the Volga.
Volga.
Roads to Stalingrad is from Nuts Publishing that I just received the other day.
That's why it's in my
that
brain.
game looks dope as well.
Savage Streets, they had a prototype copy of that at SDHC, which we got to see late last year. But it's the next in that series.
Yeah, it's called the
that system.
Area Movement Solitaire series.
Which, I think people were doing a lot of those area move games solo anyway, but making an official system for it where they're designed ground up for that.
Yep.
who's not going to buy those that weren't interested in that, right?
Well, and I love Stalingrad so much that this to me was an auto buy, and when it became announced, $45, which is mounted map board, tons of stuff. It's just a great looking little game.
You know,
and it's solo. It's cool. And
it's that much closer look at Manila, which I don't know if there's a ton of games out there that are popular about that. So I also like that you get a bit more of a unique topic.
Yeah, very unique. It's Manila in 1945, so it's as the Americans come, he comes back.
And I just think most games tackle that at a high level.
Yeah.
But here it's a bit more focused, which I think is really neat.
It's actually shipping now, so I know that one's coming out.
Nice.
And my guess is I'll have it first of next week.
Sweet. That'll be good. So next up we have 1812, Napoleon's Fateful March. Great name. From VUCA Simulations. So this is...
the first thing you said, VUCA...
Yes, which is almost an auto buy.
Piqued my interest,
so
right?
Is this VUCA's first Napoleonics game?
I believe it is.
That's exciting.
Yep. Well, remember they did that Franco-Prussian game, Friedrich. So I always feel like Napoleonics and Franco-Prussian they're not the same, right? But it's the same. I guess it's similar periods. A little later.
No,
a little
not
later.
Really, yeah.
But I always think of Napoleonics and that together.
So 1812, I presume, is the French March on Moscow.
Yep, absolutely.
Which hilariously is something that I've been interested in recently.
Why was that?
Because I finished reading War and Peace at the end of last year.
Okay.
And I even kind of tweeted out and asked some people hey, what's some good games about the Battle of Borodino or the campaign? Because I have the War and Peace game. At some point we will play that.
Yep. This year, in fact.
It's on the docket.
I think it's in July or August.
But there was an operational game called Roads to Moscow, I think, which I have in our cart on Noble Note.
Okay.
Which looks really good. It's a stunning map. But this is VUCA's putting out a new one on this topic. It couldn't be more what I want to play right now. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of information on the game page itself, but if you go to the Board Game Geek page, Brian Asklev, who's the designer, he is doing the Baltic Empires with GMT. I did a series of event card spoilers with him on the blog a year ago, so go check those out for that game. But the game just looks interesting, and he has a designer diary. I read every single one of those and was immediately hooked. And then furthermore, when you look at the game page and the cover, the art just sucks you in.
And
beautiful.
VUCA does nothing if not very well produced games.
Right.
So you're going to get something that's good quality from that standpoint.
Yeah, and it's a card-driven game, so it's going to be a little bit different. It's operational scale. So I think of the games from VUCA that we have loved recently, Traces of War, what was the other one? Donnerschlag. Those are just great games. So if they play anything like that, even though they're card-driven, I'm in.
Yeah.
So very much, and I read on that BGG entry, that's probably going to be first or second quarter of this year.
Okay.
It's supposedly being reviewed for final printing, and what's that take? 3 or 4 months to get done and then ship?
And VUCA is one of the few European companies, in my opinion, that does a really good job at having US distribution.
Yeah, they do.
They put their games out there, and at worst, you can get them through Noble Knight, who are a wonderful company, and you should definitely order through them. We love those guys.
Yep.
But they do a great job, and it's much easier to get their games than it is some of those other war games out there.
Yeah, and VUCA, great company. Really great little company. Sorry, we're having some bumpy roads.
We've just
here.
Crossed into Ohio, and the roads are absolutely horse nuggets.
Indiana's roads are perfect.
I mean,
come on.
So, next up we have a game that I know nothing about. The Fate of All, Alexander's third campaign against the Achaemenid Empire.
Read that again. That was a whole mouthful. Just kidding.
334 to 331 BCE from Thin Red Line Games.
There you go. That's a mouthful.
Woo. Yeah.
This is one that was announced mid-year last year by designer Fabrizio Vianello, who owns Thin Red Line Games.
Okay.
And I think most wargamers know specifically about their 1985 Cold War Gone Hot series.
Yes.
That we have a couple of their games, unfortunately, have not been able to get to them because they are monster games.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yes, they're huge.
But this one deals with ancients, Alexander the Great, some of his earlier campaigns, and it just looks phenomenal. Huge game, thousands of counters, dozens of maps, it seems. Beautiful production. It's just a game that I'm extremely interested in. One, I've always enjoyed Ancients games every time we've played them. Two, I think Fabrizio has a very good style about his games and rule books, and it just looks like a great subject. So I'm very, very intrigued by it. Now the art, it is AI generated, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it looks good. But that is the only part that bothers me about the design. Only because I think there's artists that could do that work, but
yes,
that's maybe a topic for a different video. But I'm very excited about that, and he has made comments over and over again that it's probably going to be first quarter of this year.
Okay.
So one we can look forward to. It's going to be a huge, big box and very heavy, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
So next up we have 1793, Patriots and Traitors, the French Revolution, Year 2, from Sound of Drums.
I love these long titles.
Yeah.
Only in war games, right?
Well, it's like, here's a title and a subtitle with a strap line and a date on it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. So a game about the French Revolution from Sound of Drums, which is a Swiss company?
Yep.
Who recently teamed
They
up
put a
with
Swiss
Song
Army
Games.
knife in every box. I'm just kidding. It's not true.
But yeah, those... also, funnily enough, a topic that I've been kind of interested in is the French Revolution.
The Gods Will Have Blood is
yes.
a book you read recently. And
Dan Bullock did a little game based on that book,
Yep.
which is like a very specific judicial aspect of that. But I feel like we've played a lot of games that happen after the French Revolution, or like the effects of it.
Yep.
But not many serious French Revolution games.
Right.
There's lots of light card games and stuff out there which are fun, but of course, when you want something, it happens.
Yeah.
I swear that's the case.
If you want it bad enough, it sends it out into the universe, and then it gets made.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yes.
Especially because Sound of Drums, also in the games that they've released, has great production value as well.
They definitely focus on that element, and there's no reason to doubt that this won't be that way. It is a card-driven game, so there's a ton of cards, ton of cool little pieces. I just got ALAO 1807 from them,
yes.
by the way, which is also on my list.
Looks great.
Yep. Huge maps.
Yes. It's French Revolution.
Yes.
I'm curious to play a game about that.
And I think it's 4 players, so it's going to be a multiplayer game.
Which makes sense with all the different sub-factions, so that's cool.
But if you don't know Sound of Drums, I think their website's worth a look. And I think they've got some really great games in the pipeline as well.
I feel like they kind of just exploded onto the scene almost out of nowhere in the last couple of years.
Right.
Really. And they've really got quite a diverse portfolio at this point.
Yep.
And looks like they're continuing to expand, the range of games and topics that they're doing, which I think is really neat.
Yep.
Next up, we have Brett Wilder from Phalanx.
I mean,
which
one
is
of the best games I've played in the last 3 years.
Yeah, Brett Wilder is more of like a dudes on a map style game, although there is a lot of fighting in it. But it's a game that. When did we play that? 2 years ago?
We played that in 2022.
Yeah.
Like July of 22.
Gosh. I've just been waiting for it ever since.
Yeah.
Honestly, it went to Kickstarter and...
Very successful.
Yes.
They unlocked every single stretch goal.
And it's taken a while because the production value on the game looks like it's going to be, and it's touted to be absolutely crazy good.
The thing I loved about that game is it is one of the few light civ building dudes on a map game where combat is encouraged. You cannot turtle.
Yeah, it's mandatory.
Yep, you cannot turtle. You can't just build buildings and focus on you've got to go out, because a quarter of the victory conditions associate with, I think those were called Dalk tiles, which it requires controlling territories.
Yeah, and there is not enough for everyone to get them.
Nope,
You
so
have to
get
take
out
them
and get
from
them.
people.
Yep.
It's not possible to avoid combat and
Yeah.
win the game.
And that was I thought, the best part of that design, because we've played many dudes on a map light civ style games, and there's people that can win just by turtling, and that's not
Well,
for us.
Indeed, that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Whoever doesn't get attacked will have the strongest economy and will win.
Yep.
And that's the reality of those games. Well, the person who gets attacked last, they've
Yep.
had the longest time to build up, they've got this bigger economy than everyone else because they haven't had to fuel a war effort.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but it's often dissatisfying for war
Right.
gamers. And so, yeah.
Well, when I'm going to play a 3-hour game, I want to have some fighting in it. That's just me.
And I think they did a really good job of baking it in where, like, you will do
Yeah.
this.
It's
will
required.
happen.
Yep.
And plus, it looks great.
The production
didn't overstay its welcome lengthwise.
The production on that one is just amazing.
Yeah.
The pieces are so cool. The colors are so good. On the blog, if you're interested, there's an interview. I did a first impressions post, and we did a video preview.
There's a
So
full
check
video
those
on that.
out.
Yes.
Definitely worth your time. I would get in on that while you still can.
So a couple others.
From Phalanx.
Yes. So next up we have a Guest of Robin Hood, which is also in that irregular conflict series, kind
Game
of like
number 2.
Bijay and Agara. But this one's a 2-player game. Obviously, it's about Robin Hood. This is one that, like, our father-in-law is obsessed with Robin Hood. That's like one of his niche interests.
Yeah.
Like, if there's a game that has
He'll
Robin
get it.
Hood on it, he will buy it.
Yeah.
We'll never play it, but he'll buy it.
Yeah.
But this is one where it's like, oh, cool. It's a much lighter theme than some of the other pretty intense coin games out there. And it plays a little bit differently. It's 2-player only. And so it looks like it's just good, solid fun.
Yep.
And it's gone through a lot of development. And so it also seems like the gameplay is very tight as well.
Well, and the designer, Fred Serval, he did Red Flag Over Paris that we really enjoyed. That's in that lunchtime series, Fort Sumter style game, but it had a lot of unique elements. And I see this one as being another unique approach to a game that's put into, it might be shoehorned into a system, but it looks really good. I'm very excited about it.
Well, and I also think it's not shoehorned in. That's why they made the irregular complex series.
For these
because
kinds, sure.
they did so much different with it. And they're like,
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I'm excited for that. I think
Very
that one's
much
going to be cool. Next up we have In the Shadows, also from GMT Games. We played this just at San Diego.
A couple of months ago.
Back in November. Yeah, funny enough, I've had a prototype sat on my shelf for a while.
Yeah, right.
But it is Dan Bullock, Joe Schmidt, and a third gentleman.
Yeah,
And I'm very sorry. I should know who it is, and I don't remember off the top of my head. But it's a game about the French resistance in World War II. And again, it's one of those topics where, like, when you get French resistance games, it's usually like a little tactical game.
Chris Bennett,
Or that's right.
I think.
Or, you know, some other aspect of it. Here it's like this kind of much larger game about the whole of the resistance over the course of time.
Yep.
And it was really just fun to play.
Yep.
Very tight, very close, very challenging.
What I really enjoyed about that game was thinking about how to use the cards I had access to, and then how to play off of your stuff and what you were doing. You were the Germans.
Yes.
I was the resistance. And ultimately, didn't it come down to like the final roll for control of one of the regions, and you had to roll
I think
like,
I had to arrest your last guy.
right, but you had to roll like a 3 or a 4 or high or something. And
well, it was the card pull.
yes,
had the yes
because there
or
are no
on
dice in it.
Yep.
Yep. But it came down to the end, and it was very satisfying. Yet it played in like an hour.
Yeah,
So-
and it's one of those games where it's both short but also very meaty.
Yes.
Like there's a lot to consider with every one of your moves. It's almost a little bit puzzly where you're like, okay, if I do this first,
Yep.
That means I'm in this kind of a space that maybe doesn't have an alert token or does, which means I can or can't do this,
Yep.
and then this, that, and this, and how are you going to respond to that? Lots of that going on, but it's in this really small space with very limited number of pieces.
Yeah.
Very, very cool game.
And it looks great too. I know we played with a prototype, but I like the look of it. It harkened back to the 1940s, and I like that graphic design element.
Next up, we've got The Troubles from Compass Games,
This one's been in design for what seems like years.
which I hope is a good thing,
Yeah.
because it's gone through, it's that thing where a rushed game is probably going to be bad, but a game that's developed and delayed could be,
Has the potential to be
much, yes,
way better.
less likely to be terrible.
Yep.
So I hope that's a good indication that it's gone through a lot of work and a lot of massaging, because, again, it's one of those topics where it could be a really cool and interesting multi-factional game,
Yeah.
and it could be something that there's not a ton of games out there on that
Yeah.
aren't like tactical military operations and stuff, because this is, I think it was originally going to be a coin style
Yeah, it is
game.
definitely coin series inspired, and
But
I think ultimately Hugh just went with Compass.
But I think it's gone through enough changes as well where it isn't just a coin rip-off as well.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff. There's a billion different articles and card spoilers and interviews on the blog that you can read about it.
And the production looks really great. The graphic layout, it just looks very functional yet attractive. Very much excited for that one.
Yeah.
I know I've read some stuff recently that I believe it will be out this year. Is that 3 months, 6 months? I don't know that
2024 at some point.
Yeah, I really hope it is 2024.
But that's also the nice thing about Compass is that you'll know when it's coming out, because they'll do a big Kickstarter for
about
pre-orders.
3 weeks before, yeah.
They do a lot of noise about stuff when things come out. So it won't be a surprise, that's for sure. Next up from also Compass, Burning Banners.
Yes.
By Chris Moller. This is a multiplayer hex encounter fantasy war game.
You don't hear those kind of things put together very often.
Especially not ones that are good.
Yeah.
Like, Chris Moller is both a war game designer but also an illustrator. He did Magic the Gathering cards for a very long time and lots of other stuff. And he like hand drew all the maps, all the cards, all the counters.
And you can tell.
And yeah, it's stunning stuff.
And you can tell not because it's bad, but it has such detail.
Yeah.
It just looks gorgeous. We saw that at WBC a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, didn't get to play it.
Yeah.
I think Chris had to leave, but the game looks amazing. We backed it on Kickstarter. I think it's shipping in the next month or so we'll see how that one goes, but I'm definitely interested in that one.
Yeah, it looks great, and it looks fun, and
And who doesn't love a fantasy style war game? There's just not many of them out there.
And it's his own little unique fantasy world, so it has like a book of lore and all this stuff, and millions of different scenarios. I think it can play anywhere from like 2 to 6 players, and millions of different sizes of scenarios that you can get into.
Yep.
It just looks great. Next up, we have Halls of Montezuma from Fort Circle Games, which is their follow-up to
The Shores of Tripoli.
So it's part of that
We will fight our
Marine Corps
battles.
series. I don't know if they have a name for the little series they got going on.
I'm not sure that they do or not either, but
they should.
Yeah, they should.
But Fort Circle Games, they've got a couple games out, and they're just very highly produced and well thought out. It's a small company. They don't put out a ton of games, but the ones that they do are usually really solid.
Yep.
This one looks like, where Shores of Tripoli is quite easy and accessible and introductory, I think Halls of Montezuma has a little extra step on top of it.
A little more meat,
so it's a little bit more beefy, which I'm excited for. Looks great, production value looks great as well, and it's one of those games that's been in the works and we've known about it for a very long time.
Right.
So it's very, very excited. It should be coming out this year.
Yep. And we backed it on Kickstarter, so we'll get our copy, and very much looking forward to it.
Next up, we have Fighters of Europe from Capsicum Games, which I don't know if I know anything about.
It's the follow-up to the Fighters of the Pacific.
Oh!
So this is the European theater.
Yeah.
Yep.
Doi. Yes, I definitely know about this. I was
Yeah.
like thinking about like
What is this?
Street
Yeah.
Fighters. I'm like, what are we?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I do know about this.
Yeah.
Fighters of the Pacific. There's a full review on our website, on the YouTube channel about that. There's a grit truck in front of us.
Thank you very
It's
much.
very loud.
Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh.
whoopsies. We're fine. We're not dead.
Yeah. Well, that semi just, yeah.
Yeah. Fighters of Europe. So Fighters of the Pacific is a non-dice based aerial combat game, hex encounter in the Pacific. Really, really fun. Fighters of Europe is more.
It's more of that, right?
But I think we got on in the Kickstarter for it, I think.
We did.
Okay.
Yep.
Because
So we're going to get all the expansions and all the extra content and all the extra fighters and bombers and everything.
Because we didn't. I think we just got the
We
base
just got the
game
base
for
game.
Pacific,
Yep.
which isn't bad because I think it retails for like $40.
It was like $40.
And
Yep.
if you buy it for a $40 game,
It had a lot in it.
2024, it is well worth the price of entry.
Yep.
You get 10 scenarios, and each of those is beefy. I think you can't buy any game for $40 anymore.
No.
And it was well worth it. So doing the
Well-
Kickstarter, pay a little bit more, but you get a lot more. Sure, why not?
Well, and the thing I love about that system is it, and you mentioned it, no dice. There
Yeah.
are no dice in combat.
Totally deterministic.
It is all about your maneuvering, positioning, elevation, whether you're in clouds or smoke, and you've got to figure those things out. So it's somewhat programmed. It's not program movement, but you know what your thing's capabilities are, your fighters, and you got to figure out how best to take advantage of that. But it's just a blast. We had a great time.
And I think I really grew to like it the more and more I thought about it, because I've played a number of aerial war games, and it's like you do all this and you like count out your hexes and your moves and stuff, and then you chuck your dice and you miss. And you're like,
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, because the combat's deterministic, you're rewarded for good initiative play, for good maneuvering, and you're not punished for crappy dice rolls
Right.
once you get there. And I just think that helps both to keep the pace along, but also like stops you getting into the sads of like, ah man,
Oh, I missed, yeah.
I like lost because I can't roll, even though I
Yeah.
completely outmaneuvered you. And so I actually really like that aspect of it from that tactical airborne perspective.
And you mentioned it. The key is really the initiative, because if you have initiative, you can pass. The other guy has to move their stuff, and then you're kind of like, okay,
you
I'm
can
going to
outflank
swoop in
him.
and jump on you. But great looking game, has tons of content, and who doesn't want to? I mean, when I hear a Merlin engine,
Yeah.
right, Spitfires and Hurricanes, that's what I want to fly. BF 109s, Messerschmitt. I mean. And I think you even have the bombers. I think they have bombing Lancasters.
I imagine they'd have some light bombers at least,
Yep.
based on what they had in the other one. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yep.
And again, if you just get the base game for $40,
Such a good value.
well worth it. That's the kind of thing, put on your like birthday present list. A family member's going to buy it for you, and you're
Yeah.
going to have a great time. So a couple games we got.
And it does have a solitaire mode dedicated.
okay.
So, but you could also do just double-sided, and it's still fun and interesting.
But I presume the solo mode can somehow fudge like the passing and things.
Yeah.
Because the two-player aspect is what
Really where
makes
it's
it
at.
really good.
Yep.
Woohoo! So, a couple games from Legion War Games.
Yep.
So there's 3. We got Invasion Malta, Air Raid Pearl Harbor, and Miracle at Dunkirk. All 3 of these games have been on their
CPO
CPO list for
like 47 years, I think.
At least 5 years.
Yeah.
I think we have interviews for at least 2 of these.
Yep.
From like 2017,
Yep.
and finally, Legion's famously like
Well,
go at
it's
their
just-
own pace.
It's just Randy, his wife, and the designer, and that's the
Yeah.
team. So, working through things like
There's only so much they can do.
yeah,
'Cause
they
Ra-
do 4 or 5 games a year. It's just what they
Yeah.
do.
Because, you know, part of that is also, like, they do all the shipping and all that stuff themselves.
Yeah.
Randy does all the graphic artwork unless someone else brings it to him, but most of the time he does it all himself. Like,
Yeah.
they do everything in-house, and so I understand why their schedule is what it is. But finally, some of these ones that I've been looking forward to for a long time are on the docket for Q1, Q2 2024.
Well, the Air Raid Pearl Harbor looks just fantastic.
It looks so good.
Invasion Malta, is that Vance Funbury's? I'm trying to remember. Maybe it's not.
Yes, it is.
It is.
No, it
Okay.
is.
We've liked his game. Like, the game that comes to mind when I think of Vance is
Demyansk Shield.
I loved that game. And Legion just has great little games. Every game we've played of theirs, I think of Nemesis 44, one of my favorite CBI theater games. It's just fantastic.
Well, and Malta is obviously it's a what if fictional German land invasion of Malta. So I presume you're going to have all the air bombardment and sea bombardments.
Yeah.
And then you get to do German beach landings, and what does that look like? And there's a couple games out there that I think have done that, but I think they're kind of old, and who knows?
The Dunkirk game, is that Herman Luttman? Sorry.
That is also, yes, it is.
Okay. My memory, dang.
I think it's a redo of one of his old ones.
Okay.
I think that's the case.
Well, you know how we feel about Herman Luttman if you watch last month's debrief video. The guy just knows how to design games.
Yeah,
period.
It'll be both very fun.
Yep.
And
interesting.
Also interesting and something cool there. And I think Dunkirk's an interesting topic because it kind of has to go one way.
Yeah.
And so how do you make that interesting? What are you doing to make that worth play?
How do you make it winnable, right, quotes, by the British side?
And keeping that as a satisfying play experience.
Yeah. I'm just falling back.
We just got on the boats over the course of time. Okay, what does that defense look like? How am I playing with these French pieces in this defensive perimeter around Dunkirk?
Yeah. So
that the Brits can get off the... Like, what is... Yeah, I'm very curious about it, that's for sure.
And Air Raid Pearl Harbor, is that our friends Bob Best and...
No.
Steve Dixon? No?
No. So it's Air Raid Pearl Harbor is a hex encounter game.
Okay.
Where you are literally flying zeros.
Okay.
And it's stuff over Pearl Harbor doing...
Is that a solo design?
No, I don't think so.
I'm very much looking forward to that one then.
Yeah, it's been in the works for a long time, but they've had the artwork for it up for a while. I know it went through a number of different changes over the course of the years, so I'm very curious to see how that ends up.
Yeah,
but again, how many Pearl Harbor games are there?
And the thing about Legion Wargames is they do very interesting and unique games.
Yeah.
Typically lesser game subjects, that's their niche, and they do a great job at it.
And how do you keep that interesting for something that is probably fairly one-sided?
I would assume one of their most famous games is Dien Bien Phu from Kim Kanger, correct?
I think that's the case.
But we have a dozen or more of their games and have enjoyed every single one of them that we've played.
Yeah, if you go onto the Legion Wargames website, you're going to look through their CPOs and their catalog, and it's like...
They got a game on that?
Huh?
There's a game on that?
What is this?
Yeah, awesome.
It's such cool and unique topics that you just don't see games on.
They've got a Berlin Airlift game by John Paniski that I've been looking forward to for like 6 years, but who knows? It looks great.
I think the last one that we've got on the list is Rome Total War, or Total War Rome, the board game from PSC Games, which, again, that's been in the works for a couple years, but it's something they did a Kickstarter for it, should be fulfilling this year, hopefully, and...
That's a massive, miniature-focused war game.
Yeah.
It's called Total War. It's based on the IP, right? The video game series?
Yeah, so they got the license from Creative Assembly, and it's exactly what you would expect.
Yep.
But, stripped down so it doesn't take you 10,000 hours to play a campaign of it. It's a couple hours, and they have all sorts of optional bolt-on rules and a system where you can use it as a campaign to then do like miniatures battles for the actual combats, or you can just play it as a board game where you resolve the battles in the board game way as well.
Yeah.
Then it looks great. I saw a prototype of that in 2022 at UK Games Expo.
Well, and I want to play that game.
Yeah.
I just literally want to play it.
Well, it's one of those. It's both an Ancients game, but it's also not super mega heavy in.
Well, it's going to be heavy, weight-wise.
Yeah.
Huge box.
But like, and maybe it is heavy in that way, but I don't know.
Seems lighter.
It's playable, where it's not bogged down in a bunch of minutia. It's like, build some guys, move some guys, fight with some guys. Let's develop my technology. Let's build some buildings.
Well, and it's about Rome. Who doesn't think about Rome 3-4 times a week?
Yeah. Famously, everyone does that all the time, especially in our hobby. That's for sure. But I think that's everything that we've got on the list. I'm sure. Oh, no, that's not true. That's not true.
Oh, okay. We could add thousands of games, to be honest. But
there was a couple that I had skipped over, which I will bring. So, a couple non-war games. Congress of Vienna and I, Napoleon.
Yes.
Both from GMT Games. Congress of Vienna, exactly what it sounds like. I, Napoleon is like a
solo
Napoleon command and control RPG. Like trying to fight wars, raise money, keep your civilization going.
And he starts as his little artillery officer and then moves up, right?
Yeah. So, and that's by Ted Racer, who, most of his games are ones that you should look at. He's a very, very good designer, that's for sure. And Congress of Vienna is the latest in the Great Statesman series.
Yeah, Fred Esparago is the designer.
And so you've got a couple games which are wargame adjacent, but they're like these historical games, and those are, don't poo-poo games that aren't just dudes in a line fighting. That's what I would say. Especially if you can get people together to play them. The Great Statesman series has a lot to offer from an interactive game standpoint. Yep. And those are two that I'm looking forward to. I, Napoleon is quite different in that it's solitaire, but man, some of those, GMT has come out with some very good kind of these solitaire simulation style games recently. And I just think that I, Napoleon is going to be one of those that's going to fly off the shelves.
Oh, no doubt.
Honestly.
Well, and it's going to be great production as well. I've seen some of the pre-production of the components, and they look fantastic. Yeah. Literally fantastic.
And then the last one I had on here was the deluxe version of Fields of Fire First Edition. So, I've played Fields of Fire a lot. It's great. Very steep barrier of entry. But they've got Fields of Fire Deluxe Volume 1 coming out, and basically they've got all the corrected counters in there that have come out over the years and stuff, and they've added in bits and pieces. But the biggest thing is that they have, from the ground up, entirely reworked the rulebook so that it is much easier to pass, it's much easier to learn. You can actually go on their website and get it in a PDF, and it's 100 pages. But having it in a printed form in a new box, I hope will open that game up to more solitaire gamers in the hobby, because a lot of people find it very daunting. It has a very distinct reputation, and it is not undeserved, frankly.
Well, isn't it daunting because it's a somewhat outside of the box thinking with the way the battlefield is created and how the different areas interact? It just seems unique.
Well, there's nothing like it, so it's not like you can bring any assumed knowledge to it, right?
Yeah.
If I play a Hex Encounter war game, I know how movement works. I'm going to spend my movement points. That's the case for like every Hex Encounter war game, basically. Whereas it's less the layout of the board, and it's more about just like what you do.
Yeah.
And the game does not hold your hand in any way. It is in the first edition. Like, you can do so much stuff, and it just is like, hey, it's your turn. You get a number of actions. Here's about 7 pages of actions that you can do, all of which are kind of loosey-goosey in a way. And it can seem very abstract of like, it doesn't say do this, this, and this, and it does this, this, and this, which does these effects on the board. It doesn't say that in that way.
Got it.
And gleaning that and putting it into other sections of the rules and doing all this stuff and bringing it all together is very challenging.
So it's a matter of once you play and keep playing, you kind of put it all together and then figure it out.
But you have so much freedom in that game to do whatever you want.
Okay.
That it leaves a lot of kind of the commands open-ended, but also it leaves your options like in every other game that you play, it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'll just do this.
Right.
You can't do that in Fields of Fire. There's no default thing that you should be doing.
Got it.
Because it is a game about command. And so if you don't push your troops forward, they will not go forward. If you have to figure out how to execute a military maneuver, and if you have not been in the military, you kind of got to wing it.
Yeah.
And so the new rule book is much better laid out. The explanations are much better as well, and a bit less narrative.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that new edition. I think it's going to open that to more people.
Maybe you can give me the old edition, and I'll try my hand at it.
Yeah.
Good luck. Is that what you're going to say to me?
We got to get another rule book, honestly.
Got it.
It's so
Needs some
crazy. It's fine, like I can do it, but it's a lot of work. The payoff's worth it, but like the new one, it's less work.
Right.
It's just easier to get into.
Well, maybe I get the old version and then I just photocopy your rule book, right?
100 pages of rules.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So a couple more games I want to mention because I'm very interested and excited about them. Seljuk, which is another Levy and Campaign series. It's the Western Roman Empire and how it is falling apart, I think. The Ottomans, blah, blah, blah. Looks really good. The art is fantastic. Justin Facino, new designer. Very much looking forward to that one. The other one that I'm really excited about, and you're going to be surprised about this, is Space Empires, All Good Things, the final expansion.
Yes. I'm going to be surprised by that, you mean I'm not surprised in any way.
Yeah, right. That was sarcastic. But that game is literally just a bunch of bolt-on, additional, optional elements. More cards, more of this, more of that. Couple of new scenarios, a new mode. They've got some new buildings that you put together, I'm so excited about that because we have loved Space Empires and we don't play that game enough. We just don't.
No.
Because it's so big, so long, such log keeping.
Yeah, a lot of bookkeeping in that one.
But still very much looking forward to that. My guess is that's out sometime mid through the year.
Yeah, and I think Hubris is coming out this year. That looks great. And I presume that we'll get another coin game later in the year.
Well, Pure Land, I think, is the next one, and potentially China's War.
About Fading Star.
I don't think that's
out.
Anywhere close.
I'm looking forward to
but
that.
But I do think China's War is closer, but Pure Land is right behind it.
And then another Levy and Campaign Henry. I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Yep.
If we get that, that'll be end of the year, I think.
And there's other games. I mean, that's the danger with these. We could make this a 10-hour video, but there's a lot out there, and it's exciting. A great time for wargaming. And I didn't even mention David Thompson's new Undaunted series entry, which is a sci-fi version.
Yes.
It's like 2400 Callisto or something like that. I'm butchering it from Osprey Games, but it's going to be sci-fi. Who doesn't love sci-fi?
Oh, and they've got Night Witches. I think that's
Night Witches from Fort Circle. I don't know. There's just so many good games. So many good games.
Yeah, it's so, hopefully that was enlightening and maybe you heard about a game that you hadn't heard of before that piques your interest, but there's a ton of games out there. And, on top of all that, there'll be games like, there'll probably be an SCS game, there'll probably be a BCS game at some point, that's the other one that I wanted to mention is I'm almost...
and we got to stop after this one.
Yes. I think... in my brain, I think that we're getting the Vicksburg GCACW game in 2024.
Okay.
It might be a 25. But that's one where I'm like, yep, looking forward to that.
Well, and that's
as well.
because we've just recently played GCA CW.
Yes.
And enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then we have another one, Stonewall Jackson's Way 2. We're going to try to, because it's like 10 turns or something.
Yeah, it's like the campaign's 15 turns. And I'm playing a campaign with Mike on Vassal. We've played 3 or 4 turns of it.
Okay.
And it's much easier than On to Richmond.
Got it.
It's like 7 pages of advanced rules instead of like 25. And like my forces are less incompetent. They're still not great, but they're less incompetent.
So you're the CSA?
No, I'm playing as
You're
the
Union?
USA.
Okay.
Yeah, but like On to Richmond, it was very difficult to get your formations to activate all together.
Yeah.
Whereas in Stonewall Jackson's Way, they all
Okay.
activate together. Your formations just activate. It's great. You don't have that extra roll in there.
All right.
But that's still great. I think their Vicksburg game is coming. I hope. I mean, I just want it to be here now, but
Right.
I think that might be a late 24. It might be a 25, but
Well, with On to Richmond having come out just this past year, it potentially could.
yeah, it's part of the reason I think it might end up being a 25. But
Got it.
yeah, there's a lot of games to look forward to. Let us know in the comments if you have any other games that you're like, oh, this is something that I'm looking forward to.
I would
as
imagine
well.
no one has any additional games that
No,
we didn't cover.
no. So keep it to yourself.
There's
Just
only like
move on.
25 games coming out, so
But yeah, I mean,
sarcasm.
we just
alert.
talked about probably
25
games.
Yeah. And could have talked easily about another 25, but
If we play like half of those, you'd have had an amazing year of
Yeah.
new games.
yeah.
But yeah,
And we will probably play 20 or 30 of those, so we'll see.
yeah,
We'll see.
I hope so. I've got very high hopes for a lot of these very exciting and very solid looking titles from either really good designers or new designers.
Yeah.
A lot of cool stuff going on, but I think that's it as far as the list goes. So again, let us know any other games you've got in the comments. Appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander with PlayersAid.com.
And I'm Grant.